Hi guys, this is Tamara coming back at you in another video, and I think you're gonna like this particular topic. Thanks so much for watching today. I want to talk a little bit about 12 incorrect beliefs about therapy. One of the things that I have noticed is a lot of people considering therapy now that 2018 is finally here. One of the things that they have noticed about themselves is an increase in anxiety as well as depression. Now, there are a couple of reasons why anxiety might be an issue for them. One reason is because of the new year. They don't know what to expect. They don't want to return to work after such a long vacation. They're feeling overwhelmed by expectations and maybe even goals and resolutions that they have set, which is one of the reasons why I discourage my clients from setting New Year's resolutions. But beside that point, there's other things that they are worried about: their own lives, their families, their jobs, their future. So they have an increase in anxiety about that. We also have an increase in depression. All of the beautiful lights are gone. All of the wonderful holiday spirit and presence is gone. If you're like me, I like to kind of submerge myself in the spiritual aspect of Christmas. I love focusing wholeheartedly on my faith. I also have a family that's very religious and they walk by faith. So we submerge ourselves in that presence during the holiday time, and when it's over, it's quite depressing. So there are a lot of people who feel that way. Their family is going back home, travel. Also, and this is kind of funny, but at the same time, it's very serious. And my brother made a joke out of this the other day. He's like, okay, now that Christmas is over, guess what? You're gonna have to look at those credit card bills. And it's like, oh my God, he's so right. So we have a lot of issues after the holiday break and the holiday season. Between Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's, I mean, it's so hard to get back on track. So there's a lot of people wanting therapy. And so I want to talk about 12 incorrect beliefs that a lot of people tend to form about therapy, and I think it gets in the way of treatment. It also gets in the way of having correct and balanced expectations. So I think this video is going to be useful to you, and I actually took some notes because there's a couple things that I want to focus on. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to start with my top incorrect belief that my clients bring to therapy, and that is that therapy is short-term. Right? A lot of people think that it's short-term. Can therapy be short-term? Absolutely. Can it also be long-term? Absolutely. So I think the best approach to take is figuring out, what does my challenges consist of, right? Is this a short-term issue that I need to work on, or is this a long-term issue that I need to work on? And if so, what does that look like for my therapist? So the number one incorrect belief that I get from clients is that therapy is short-term. A lot of clients believe that they can come to therapy once or twice and their problem's going to be resolved. The reality is this, that depending on your situation, it might take a few months. For some people, it might take a few years. So I think it's important to, when you meet with your therapist and you guys click and you like them, I think it's important to talk to them about the length of time of therapy. Now, most therapy sessions are at least 45 minutes to an hour, which would be 60 minutes, depending on your insurance company and what they cover, and depending on your therapist and what your therapist is capable of doing when it comes to scheduling and things like that. Now, for me, I usually take clients and I do 60-minute sessions. However, if my client's insurance only covers a 45-minute session, I will do about 45 to 50 minutes with my client, but for the most part, it is 60 minutes. Now, family sessions can be a little bit different. Family sessions, might be 1 to 2 hours, but again, it depends on your state, it depends on insurance, and it depends on your therapist. So when you go to your first session, be mindful about duration of time and ask your therapist, what do therapy sessions look like as far as duration? How many months is this going to take? and how long do you see your clients for? Okay, so that's incorrect belief number one, that therapy is short term. All right, so incorrect assumption number two is that therapy is for the client only. I think a lot of people come to therapy believing that they are the only client, and let me just say that that's most likely not the case. If you're coming to therapy because you're having marital challenges, it's you and your husband both. And of course, this depends on what kind of issues you guys are having, but for the most part, if you guys are having challenges within your marriage as far as communicating and getting along and making decisions, then both of you need to be in therapy, not just you. Another example of this is child and adolescent therapy. I'm a child and adolescent therapist by trade. I'm specialized in child and adolescent trauma, but I also work with some adults and college age students as well. But one thing I've noticed with children and adolescents, if I can speak right today, children and adolescents who come to me for therapy, what I notice is that the parent brings the child to therapy and says, fix my child. The reality of that is a child is typically a product of his or her environment. So something's going on, whether that's in the home or the extended family or in the community or in the school. And so it's not going to just be the client who's the child who's going to be seeing me for therapy. I'm going to want to talk to teachers and parents and grandparents to figure out, like, where's this problem originating. So that's number two. The incorrect belief is that the child or the spouse is the only client. And for the most part, that's not the case. We exist within a system, whether that's a community system, a family system, a work system, a school system. So everybody needs to be involved, not just that one person. And of course, again, this depends on what the challenge is, but for the most part, you are not the only client. Okay. The next one is that referral means rejection. So a lot of clients believe that, if their therapist is referring them to another therapist, that they're being rejected. That is not the case. Now, I can't speak for all therapists, but I can speak for myself that when I refer a client outside of myself, that means that I am admitting that I'm not qualified to deal with whatever it is that you need. Let's say, for example, someone comes to me for marital therapy. I'm not a family and marital therapist. Can I give you some tips on how to better communicate with your spouse? Absolutely. But can I help you with building, better relations between you and your husband using marital techniques? Absolutely not. So when I refer a client, and when most therapists refer clients, they're basically admitting that I want you to get the help that you need, and I'm not capable or legally and ethically capable of providing that service to you. It does not necessarily mean that you are being rejected. Now, is there a potential possibility, if I could use those two words together, is there a possibility that you are being rejected by your therapist because your case is too complicated? Definitely. Can I say that that's most therapists? No, not at all. There are unethical therapists in this field, and I wouldn't be honest with you if I didn't tell you that. But I think it's important to understand that most therapists are referring you because they want you to get the help that you need, despite the connection you guys might have. I click with most of my clients. I like most of my clients. I truly care about them. The problem is, even if we do click and I do care about them, I still can't manage their particular issue if I'm not qualified. So I will refer. Does not mean rejections. I want you to keep that in mind. All right, so let's talk about hospitalization real quickly. So if you are hospitalized against your will, if you are, in my state, it's called 302'd, right? If you are hospitalized against your will or involuntarily committed to a hospital, that does not mean that your therapist dislikes you, rejects you, or doesn't want to work with you. For the most part, that means that your particular case is too lethal for you to be in outpatient therapy. So outpatient therapy is basically when you come to the office and talk to your therapist for an hour and then you leave. If your therapist ends up sending you to the hospital against your will, that's because you're a danger to yourself or others within the community. It does not mean that they don't like you, don't care about you, or don't want to work with you. Sometimes it's the simple raw fact that you are not safe enough to be in the community. So I want you to keep that in mind. According to the state, or according to the law of the state, sometimes your therapist can't 302 you, and the hospital will tell your therapist that, or tell you that you don't need to be here, go home. Unfortunately, a lot of therapists lack knowledge on how to hospitalize their patients or their clients, so it turns into this big complicated thing. But for the most part, if your doctor does get approved, or your therapist does get approved and they are able to put you in the hospital against your will, please know that for the most part, they are doing that because they are worried about your safety. It's not rejection. If you've had situations where you felt it was personal, I encourage you to leave a comment in the box below, just to kind of stimulate conversation about this, because I know a lot of my clients feel that it's personal, and we've had long conversations about this. So go ahead and post some responses down in the comments section. Let's talk about it. That's how we learn. All right, guys, so let's go to the next one. So I think a major misconception is that anybody that has a degree is professional and knows what they're doing. And I think that is a major misconception, that if you see degrees on the wall, if you see someone with a credential, or they look professional, that they are. And I think it's important for anybody interested in therapy to interview their therapist, but in a respectful way. So what I mean by that is, you know, you want to take the humble road. I'm looking for a therapist to work with. I want to connect with somebody who can help me work through my challenges. But all at the same time, keep in the back of your mind that not only is the therapist assessing you to make sure that you're a good fit, but you should be assessing your therapist to make sure that they are a good fit for you or your child, or whoever you're trying to get into therapy. I think it's okay to do that. Now, when you start questioning and like being very disrespectful, like asking your therapist, like, where did you go to school, right? Like, you know, how long are you at work? Like, how many days a week do you work? That's very disrespectful. So you want to be careful how you ask the question and when you ask the question. But I do encourage you to keep in mind that just because your therapist or a therapist has a credential or a degree on the wall, or an article or has a book, doesn't necessarily mean that they know what they're doing. So keep that in mind. You want to make sure that you're getting the best help that you need. So that takes me to my next point, which is that an absence of negative reviews online doesn't necessarily mean that your therapist is a good therapist. I think a lot of people go online before they meet with a doctor or a therapist, and they Google them and they try to figure out, like, who is this person? And if they don't see negative reviews online, they automatically think this must be a good therapist. I beg to differ with you on that one. I don't think that an absence of negative reviews means that your therapist is good. Sometimes it just means that your therapist is not as well known in the community as they probably could or should be. It might also mean that some individuals just walk away fed up with your therapist or with the therapist, and they feel like there's no need to put in a review online. Sometimes the negative reviews don't come up until you search through Google for a couple of pages. Other times the negative reviews on the Better Business Bureau's website or on some kind of like state regulated website. So keep in mind that an absence of Googled negative reviews doesn't mean that your therapist is a good therapist. Okay, so keep that in mind. You want to become your own reviewer, you know, for lack of a better word. You want to become your own evaluator. Use your intuition. How do you feel with this person? What do you think? You know, are you getting a good vibe? Do you think you're going to be comfortable where you're at? But, you know, please don't assume that if there's no negative reviews, that must be a positive thing. Okay? The next one is the idea that my therapist serves me and will do whatever I want them to do. I think that is an extraordinarily arrogant position to take, and I discourage anybody from being that way. It's awful. I've seen clients who have come into sessions with other therapists, colleagues of mine, mentors, and they have an attitude that says, you serve me and you do whatever I want you to do. I think that's awful. So I discourage you from having that kind of attitude. I do encourage you to go into a therapy session with someone with a very humble, friendly, collaborative attitude. You're looking for somebody to support you. You're not looking for somebody to work for you. This is not your attorney, right? This is not somebody that's doing labor for you. This is somebody who's partnering with you, collaborating with you, teaming up with you, and trying to help you get through your challenges. So keep that in mind. All right, so another misconception is that it's okay to argue and force your therapist to do what you want. I think, again, that is a very arrogant, awful position to take. It's okay to ask your therapist to support you. So, for example, if your therapist is a child and adolescent therapist like I am, I think it's okay to ask your therapist to write a note to the school stating my kid has anxiety, or here's why my kid leaves school every day at this time, or, here's why my child hasn't been sleeping at night. Her therapist has wrote a note, please look at it. I think it's okay to ask your therapist to team up with you in that way. Also, I tend to partner with my clients' parents and help them fight allegations of bullying. I usually help to coordinate meetings by phone or in person with schools. So I'm very much a collaborative person when it comes to working with parents, and a lot of therapists are. So I think it's important to have that, again, humble disposition of I need you to partner with me, please. And if not, I'm not going to take that personal. But I think it's terrible to go in with the attitude that you serve me and I'm going to argue with you and force you to do what I want you to do. I discourage you from having that attitude. All right, so misconception number, I lost track of numbers, so this is just the next misconception. And the next misconception is that we're friends. I think a therapeutic relationship can be so friendly and so supportive that some clients believe we're friends, when the reality is, no, you're not friends. You guys are working together in a business relationship that is a friendly, collaborative business relationship. That's hard for a lot of clients. And I must admit, it's hard for me too. A lot of my clients and I, if not all of them, we have a very close relationship. I care about all of them. I want them to do well. I want them to get better. And I want them to be happy and content in life. Sometimes the client will take that to mean that we're friends, and that's when I have to put up my firm boundaries. That's when I have to reinforce my boundaries as well. It's hard to do that with kids and teens because that's just a different dynamic. I have kids who hug me every session. I have kids who run to me in public and hug me if they see me. I have teenagers who will ask to text me during the day if they have a bad school day. So it's a little bit hard when it comes to kids and teens to figure out where you belong. But I think a good skilled therapist can figure it out and they know how to put their boundaries up. But I do want to encourage you to be mindful that the therapeutic relationship is not a friendship. As much as that hurts, it is reality. It is not a friendship. I'm sorry. I wish it could be, but it's not. Look at that relationship as a supportive relationship that's there to catapult you or push you into a better place in your life. It's not a friendship, unfortunately. So the next misconception is I can keep coming back even if I don't pay. That's a hard one. I hate when it comes to money. I hate when everything boils down to money. I just don't like it. At the same time, we have to have a healthy relationship, and that means that I provide you a service, you provide the therapist a service as well, which is to keep up with your payments. If your insurance fully covers things, that's wonderful, but a lot of clients, their insurance doesn't cover it all, so they have to pay a copay. And a copay is like $15, $30, sometimes even $80, sometimes just $5. Whatever that copay is, you do want to pay it. You don't want to have the attitude of, my insurance is paying the full cost of this, I'll give you $5 when I can. I don't think that's respectful. I think if you're going to come to therapy and you're going to talk and your therapist is going to give you that time, I think it's more than respectful to say, you know what, I'm going to keep up with all my copays, I'm going to keep up with all my payments. I don't want you to have to chase me down about money. Unfortunately, some money issues can interfere with a therapeutic relationship, and that's not a good thing. That's not what you're there for. You're in therapy to try to get help, not figure out how to pay or keep your therapist off of you by, avoiding them every time they send you a bill. Like, that's not good. So that's another misconception, that I can keep coming to therapy even if I don't pay. Some therapists will stop you from coming to therapy. They'll put your therapy on hold until you catch up in your bills. Other therapists, such as myself, will do a sliding scale fee, meaning that I have a max fee, I have a moderate fee, and then a very low fee. My max fee is $80, and you know, that's a little bit high for you, then I'll bounce down to 40. And depending on your need, I'll bounce down to 15 a session. But again, it just depends on the situation and the insurance and what you're coming to me for. Some therapists, like I do, would do payment plans as well, where I let you pay me over time. We just sign a contract, or we sign a form that says I'm agreeing to pay. But, you know, again, you don't want to go to therapy saying, you know, I'll just pay you next time. I can keep coming to therapy as long as I show up. And that's not good. So keep that in mind. You don't want to keep coming to therapy if you're not paying. All right, so the next one is therapy is long-term. That's another misconception. A lot of clients believe that therapy is forever, that you can keep coming back for years. And I think it's important to understand, like my first incorrect belief that I addressed, therapy is short-term. Yes, it's short-term, but therapy is also not long-term. So that's the misconception, that therapy is long-term. You know, back when the dinosaurs were out with Sigmund Freud, he did therapy for years on clients and kept the same client for years. Some psychoanalysts or some psychodynamic therapists, who are basically Freudian therapists, will do long-term therapy with you, but other therapists will not. Some therapy can last a year, sometimes 2 years, sometimes 9 months, 6 months, sometimes 3 months. There are kids that I see who are being bullied for 3 months, and then as soon as the problem's remedied and everything's okay, we end therapy. So keep in mind that depending on your issue, depending on your insurance, depending on your therapist, therapy might be short-term, but it also might be long-term. But a misconception is going into therapy believing that your therapy is going to be long-term. So keep that in mind. It's not always long-term. So the last incorrect belief and misconception with therapy is that therapy will continue as long as I need it. That is also a misconception. And this might sound like what I just talked about, but it's not. It's a little bit different, and here's why. There are some clients who believe that they are in control, that they are in the driver's seat of the therapy. While, you know, to a certain extent they are, therapists typically have to put boundaries around therapy, right? So if you're in therapy because you just like to come and talk, that is not enough reason for a therapist to bill your insurance or charge your insurance for an hour session. They have to be treating something. They have to have a reason for seeing you. So let's say you've been working with Dr. McGriffin for like 9 months and your issue is resolved, but you're so attached emotionally to your doctor that you don't want to say goodbye, and so therefore you come every week just to have a conversation. Your therapist cannot document that. Your therapist also can't ethically bill for those sessions. So I think it's important to understand that you can't hold on to therapy just because it's a pacifier or it makes you feel good. I think the most important thing to keep in mind is that you are there to get support and to grow and to learn and then leave, right? Therapy has to have a graduation date. You cannot stay in therapy as long as you like just because you like your therapist. There has to be a reason why you're in therapy. So my point, again, and this is an incorrect belief, is that therapy can continue as long as I need it to, and that's a misconception that I think a lot of clients have, and that's also a misconception that a lot of therapists kind of perpetuate, because they don't talk about duration of time for therapy sometimes. So keep that in mind as you pursue therapy this year, or continue your therapy, I should say. All right, guys, so thanks so much. I know this was a long video, but I wanted to make sure to bring up the most important incorrect beliefs that I usually tackle with each of my clients when I first meet them. I wanted to make sure that you had all that information. Please post your comments and your experiences down in the comment box. Please, if you will, hit the thumbs up button. That makes this video available for other people who might benefit from this information. And if you want to get notifications on when I post the next video, which will be next Friday, go ahead and hit that bell. I will send you more videos, right? YouTube will funnel you more of my videos if you hit the bell. But in the meantime, guys, I wish you well. You can contact me if you have further questions and you don't want to leave a comment in the comment section. You can contact me at my website, anchoredinKnowledge.com. If you go to the homepage, there's a variety of ways to contact me. You can also contact me on Twitter at TherapistT. All of this information will be at the end of the video. But in the meantime, guys, I wish you well, and I will see you next week with a new video. Bye.